Hello and welcome to Sim.bc, where right now is about, well, actually 11 in the morning. Yes, indeed, 11 o'clock. Why? Well, because yesterday had the worst bit of migraine in my life. Had actually a bit of nausea as well in combination with it. Why? Well, because I was looking up different symptoms because I was feeling a bit down and I never considered myself having migraine, but I had a bit of a headache, had a bit of nausea as I said, and I just couldn't stand up because I just lost me balance and fell back down. So I was like, this is rather strange, wonder what this could be for. So I went out and I watched for the symptoms. Turned out to be probably, you should never self-diagnose yourself because that would just end up with you be dying, right, the very next day. And probably if you have a headache, you should amputate your foot. But you get with me. Anyway, I went out there and just thought well, why not just get us some information, shouldn't take it that seriously. Found migraine. Now when you have migraine, you can have both a headache and you could have some nausea going with it. It's only 5% of men who has it, according to the site that I watched, which I thought was probably isn't right. But then I looked at why you could get migraine, the things that can actually expose you to get migraine, right? And it could be stress. Now I'm looking for a master's. I'm thinking about, should I go back to France? I'm thinking about, should I start working? I'm thinking about the videos. I'm thinking about, I'm not at me home yet, right? So all of these things is actually quite stressful. Plus that I'm always in an environment, I always seem at least to find myself in an environment where I tend to be allergic, which pisses me off. So yeah, that could be one of the things. Another thing is not getting enough nutrition. And since I'm not home, I'm not eating in my regular pace, I'm not eating in my regular balance, let's say, so I tend to eat a lot less when I'm at my parents' place. Bad, I know, but I'm keeping with it now. I went up early in the morning today at 8 just to get some ordinary breakfast, and I'm gonna eat it again at 12 or 1, and having a good meal, and I'm gonna find me structure, right? Another thing could be different sleeping patterns, because yet again I'm not at home, so that's all out of whack. Waking up 9 one day, waking up at 3:30 the other day, then 3 in the morning, then 3 in the afternoon. It's all over the goddamn place. So I was thinking probably migraine then. And I saw the last one, and the last one pissed me right off, right? Worst thing that could ever happen, because I was thinking about my lighting problem, because as I said, when I came here, it didn't exist. Then I put a lamp up there, and then the lamp broke, and then I fixed the lamp, and then I was standing looking into the lamp, and I was like, in order to find the right lamp for the lamp, so to say, the right bulbs, or in other words, for the lamp. Then it turns out, right, that one of the things that can make you get migraine is watching in strangely strong lights. And I was just sitting there that's what I'm doing every day. I'm having a bit of a lamp bulb that's quite strong, facing right into my eyes. And I was like, this might not be the best course of action if I am supposed to, not have migraine. So today we're going with this light, the natural light. Oh, there it is. Natural sunlight, that's the best, isn't it? Woo. Anyway, and you might think, well, mate, you're struggling, you're taking up all the time with giving this, proposition of the video. Well, that's just for you to know how I am, how I am actually. But let's get into it, because today we're not going to get into the second smash, even though it was a second serve yesterday. No, we're not. Today we're going to get into some, well, what should we say, some intermission in between, because there's one concept, right, that you need to think about before going into actually favoring paying for playing. And you might sitting there but why? We've established that the free-to-play market is in one way, we've established that the buy-to-play market is one way, and now we can get into actually favor playing for paying or paying favor for playing. No, actually not, because in order to understand how you're favoring stuff, we need to get into one of the fundamental concepts of economy, and one of the fundamental concepts that we get taught quite early at university, and that is opportunity cost. And now I will be rambling on and on about opportunity cost, so I will just say this: there is one short explanation, there is one long one, right? And this is my own explanation from me head, so just bear with me and be a bit of source critique, a bit of source criticism in there. But the first one, the short one, so to say, to make you get free afterwards, is basically, if we have X and Y, how much X do I have to give out for 1 unit of Y, or in the other direction, how many units of Y do I have to give up for 1 unit of X? That's basically what the opportunity cost is right there and then. An example of this is if you have 100 bananas and then just 1 apple. 100 bananas is worth 1 apple. So in order for you to change your apple, you want 100 bananas. Now let's say instead that there are 100 bananas but 2 apples. Now each apple is worth 50 bananas, because that's the total amount of things that are in existence in the market. And this is what rarity stems from. This is where rarity of gold and platinum and stuff like that comes from. That there is just a certain amount of gold in the world, there's just a certain amount of platinum in the world, just a certain amount of silver in the world, together with other things that I also have in common, such as their metals, and they're very distinguishable from the eye to see and visualize and stuff like that. But the base idea is still that rarity stems from the idea that there is less of something, the supply and the demand, based on this opportunity cost. So how much do I need to give up in order to get a unit of something else? Now that is, as I said, the short explanation, and now I'm just going to, talk me way through what opportunity cost and my perception of it. So if you feel done with it, so with the theoretical part, and just zoom out now. Now what I'm gonna go into is that opportunity cost for me, is quite an extraordinary thing, because the opportunity cost is what we're basing all of our decisions in our lives on. And you might be sitting there and thinking like, well, if it's an economist term and it's about rarity and stuff, and it's about how much something is worth in compared to something else, then what does that have to do with me life? Because I get that you're going to discuss it, mate. I get that you have been taught this in economics. I get that it's useful when you're thinking about supply and demand, because how much of one unit is worth X amounts of units of another unit, and how much you need to trade in there to find a perfect trade balance, to find the equilibrium, so to say, between the supply and demand. But what I'm trying to say is that when I'm viewing opportunity cost, I'm thinking that's everything, mates. That's everything. Everything has to do with opportunity cost in one way or another. And I know that if I were to study engineering, I probably would have found some basic concept in engineering that I could apply to my entire life. If I would have gone to white psychology, I'd probably find something there that I could apply to my entire life. And if I'd gone with if I would have become a musician, I probably would have found something there which I could explain my entire life with. But since I'm an economist right now, or since I'm studying business administration and management, I'm going with the opportunity cost. Why? Well, because it comes to arguments, right? When I'm thinking about an argument, I'm thinking about opportunity cost. When I'm thinking about should I do this instead of this, I'm thinking about opportunity cost. It's something that I'm constantly applying the entire time all through my life, right? So I'm thinking about, what is the opportunity cost for me to sleep in the morning? What do I have to give up in order to actually sleep in the morning? What do I have to give up not doing that morning if I sleep an additional hour, an additional 2 hours? How much is every hour worth? Is every hour worth more and more? Are they worth exactly the same, or are they worth less and less? Is there a diminishing return when it comes to sleeping in the morning? These are the things, this is the way I'm thinking about stuff when I'm basing my decisions. So for instance, I tend to make a list in the middle of the night. Sorry, it's starting again. Still have a bit of migraine, but we'll go through it. Just bear with me if I'm, a bit weird at times and having a struggle to find my balance. Well, I tend to make a list of all the things I have to do the very next day, and then I think about it intrinsically and order it in such a way that the one with the highest opportunity cost, let's say, is at the top. The one that I deem is the heaviest, the most important part, is at the top, and then it gets diminished as we get further to the bottom. So if, for instance, I yet again talk about apples, bananas. Let's say that the apple is the one I have at top because that's the rarest, that's the one, right? I have to do that because, let's say, getting breakfast, right, is the apple, and getting breakfast is worth 100 articles read. Now, just an example, right? Just an example. This is not cutting stone. This is not what I'm basing my life on. But just an example. Then I would put breakfast at the top. Let's say that we're involving in pairs, so we say that there are one apple, 100 bananas, but then 50 pears. Then 2 bananas is worth 1 pear, 50 pears is worth 1 apple, 100 bananas still worth 1 apple, and 1 apple is worth 50 pears. Now try to get with me there, because that might have been a bit what you would say, complex. You just rewind it and watch it back if you thought it would until you get it. Because that's the idea that maybe then my pair is not breakfast, and breakfast is still apple, and articles is still the the bananas. But then let's say that the pair is videos. Let's say that me eating breakfast is 1, and it's worth about 50 videos in my world, because I need to do about 50 videos in order to skip breakfast. Let's just say, right? Let's just say theoretically. So that is how I'm basing my structure when I'm making my list in the middle of the night, in order to actually structure the day that comes after it, so that I don't get stressed in the middle of the night. I think that I mentioned it before. And that is all about what I'm thinking about when I'm steaming opportunity cost in me life. It's something that I think goes throughout your life. It goes throughout everything, because as soon as you take one decision, you're putting it up against another decision. When you're doing that, you're establishing, you're assuming, you're understanding the opportunity cost. You're analyzing the effect one thing has on something else, because you have limited time. So if I have to do one thing, what do I have to give up in order to do that thing? And that is basically the same as bananas and apples. How many apples do I have to give up in order to get a certain amount of bananas? How many bananas do I have to give up in order to get a certain amount of apples? With other words, how many units of X do I have to give up in order to achieve or access a certain amount of units of Y, and how many units of Y do I have to give up in order to access a certain amount of units of X? So that was basically it, mates. I think that this is a very interesting concept. It's a baseline, underlying concept when it comes to economics. It's a very important thing to wrap your head around, because it's all about, you know, the basic utility, marginal, diminishing returns, and all that good stuff that we'll probably get into later on. But as I said, this is something that I deem to be very important before we're moving into tomorrow's video, that it's going to be all about the second smash when it actually comes to discussing favoring paying over playing or playing over paying, because then you also have to consider, what's my opportunity cost here? How much do I need to pay in order to play, and how much do I need to play in order to pay, and all of that good stuff. But that's something that we'll take up tomorrow. So without any further ado, mates, hope that my migraine talk didn't bore you too much. Have a nice one, mates, and I'll see you tomorrow with a new video. Smash numero 2.